Today, we're looking at a purple ink by Sailor, Ink of the Witch. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around to the parts you're most interested in, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen inks, I would invite you to subscribe. I do a new ink review daily. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Parker jotter with a medium nib. I wrote with it for a day and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in the first writing samples, although there is an additional writing sample with different papers later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial that looks something like this one. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen or shade, and 8 seconds to dry. The medium is a little darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. Tomoe River. No bleeding, and normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just a hair lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 13 seconds to dry. The medium is just a hair darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 18 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we don't get any. And in Rhodia, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub, so slightly darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot when we do multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. Now across the bottom we see a very dark green. At first looking at this ink I would have thought it was like a black, but it's not. It's a green. It moves its way up and then we get this purple that is a very dark purple. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And that green is all gathered and there and not moving from that line. It does make you think that that green might be a bit of a hold-on color. The purple that pushes up is a little bit lighter than the other purple from the original chromatography, which also makes me think that that has a chance of being a real holdout color also. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to Looking at the perform on highlighter, page, this is a perfectly safe ink to use in a note-taking situation if you like to highlight. Before testing it.
Water had very little effect. It only moved some of the purple out. The same thing with the pen flush. It really didn't do very much, and even if you see where the pen flush made its way up onto the W of Witch, it didn't really affect it. Now the 1/3 bleach solution is starting to break it up. It's starting to remove it, but it's not completely removing it. It just means test this in a more inexpensive pen before you put it into your expensive pen. And if you're using the 1/3 bleach solution to get it out of your pen, make sure that you flush it with water immediately after.
I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I'll link that somewhere here. And for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Put the data onto a bell curve or standard deviation for it to be easily understood.
Sailor's Ink of the Witch has a viscosity of 1.3, making this a very, very wet ink.
To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds.
Sailor's Ink of the Witch has an average dry time of 12 seconds. So while it is a faster drying ink, compared to how wet it was, it's doing pretty good. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor's Ink of the Witch, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now it is a very dark purple ink, so I chose a nice magenta. Diamine Syrah.
The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, black and red, and white lines paper.
Here we see yellow Rhodia, and I wanted to see this because I was curious how this would affect the tone on the paper compared to white. Does this yellow give it any kind of more color that comes out? And the truth is, no, nothing. This is a very opaque ink, and it didn't care that it was on yellow paper. Its color is its color. Black and red notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is only slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 7 seconds to dry. Now the medium is slightly darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows us no color variation, and we didn't get any. Last up is white lines. Lot of bleeding, lot of ghosting. It did not touch the page underneath, so it didn't ruin the next page, but I don't think you could use the back of this page at all. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just slightly lighter than the stub, as we've seen before, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 4 seconds to dry. The medium is a little darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, just like other papers. No feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both are showing no color variation, and we're not getting any color variation, and that is all that I have for the writing samples.
So what do I think of Sailor Ink of the Witch? This is another dark purple that I've really come to appreciate. Now it's not giving a lot of shading, but there's something special about this color. It is really very nice to look at, and I don't mind that it doesn't shade a lot, because it's really very nice and reinforces how much I have started to enjoy darker purples. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience for this ink? A dry fine is really going to put down the most pleasant purple from it that you can get, although the darker that you can get from like a wet broad is nice. I would certainly lean towards the drier pens for it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you, if you enjoyed it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.